Today we have a very important and special topic to discuss for all techies. Very often when they start their college research, they hear about computer science as one major, computer engineering as one major, engineering school, study computer science in engineering school, study computer science in the College of Arts and Sciences. So there's a whole lot of options out there. And different universities have different sort of approaches to this. Pranay Begwani, who's here with me today, a student I've known for 2 years now. He's at Georgia Tech and he's pursuing computer science now, and he moved from computer engineering. So over to you, Pranay. Tell me, what is computer engineering, and then what is computer science? Why did you switch? What does it take to switch?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the question. So essentially, the difference between computer science and computer engineering is that of software and hardware. So computer science is essentially where you program software, you make applications, you develop web pages, and it's more of the things which a user will interact on the screen, and it's not the physical things, whereas computer engineering is more of the physical hardware that you're working with. So you'll make the processor on which that software that a computer scientist will develop will run, and you will make the RAM, which is the memory for a computer. So it's that difference between hardware and software which essentially separates the two subjects.
Right. So, is that true across universities and across the years that you study computer engineering? Is it only going to be hardware, network sort of solutions, or you will have to study the coding because you need to make sure it works, the hardware that you are working on?
So a lot of the times this depends on the program that your school is offering. Here at Georgia Tech, what happens is that as a computer engineering major, you take some of the core software classes, which the CS major will also do. And at the same time, you dive deeper into hardware. So your specializations are more hardware related. However, Georgia Tech has this concept known as threads, wherein you can choose your specializations. And being a computer engineering major, you get the option to choose a computer science thread also. So if you want to gear yourself more towards the software while knowing the hardware, you can take a software thread and take a CS thread. So it depends on college to college. However, there is definitely, being a computer engineering major, there is a lot of your degree is more hardware heavy than software.
Okay, so that helps, but there's enough you could do to sort of segue into computer science. So when does one know that it's computer science and not computer engineering? Some students would have liked just to stay on and work on hardware. How was it for you personally?
So the only class that I took for electrical and computer engineering is the introductory class, which was ECA 1100 over here at Georgia Tech. So they essentially tell you what each of the different threads that you're doing at Georgia Tech mean, and how you will go into, in what sort of detail will you go into. So that could be sensors, that could be processors, that could be graphics cards, or that sort of thing. So and being being an ECA major, they also have you make uh, a small project as a part of that introductory class, so that you know what you're putting yourself into. And there is I mean, the distinction is pretty clear because you'll know when you're working on hardware, because it's physical gadgets, wires, and logic gates and ports. Whereas on the computer science, you're just typing on an IDE and you're working on the software.
Okay. So how was the switch? Like, was it really difficult to transfer to the CS major? And like at Georgia Tech, if it was say slightly easier, do you know that in other schools it is almost impossible? So how does it vary from school to school?
So I'm not sure about the process between different schools, but at Georgia Tech, I know they emphasize this policy wherein you can change your major, no questions asked. So my decision was that I would switch from electrical and computer engineering ECE department to the CS department, because I did not see myself working on hardware and working on physical gadgets in the future. So I just wanted to make that switch. And the switch was pretty easy. I had to fill out a few forms, get in touch with an advisor in the CS department and the ECA department, take the permissions, and it was that simple. It took a few days to get the forms to and fro, but it was a pretty quick switch and there was no difficulties. And the only challenge that I might face is that the EC class that I took, the credit for that won't be counted. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that does not make a big difference if you're going towards the career that you want to choose.
Great. So in terms of the CS major now, like what is the progression going to look like? What kind of courses will you have options to? What kind of threads or tracks there might be within CS you can follow? And what would be this final, like a senior year student project typically be like?
Mhm. So as a CS major, the introductory class, which is basically introduction to Python, that is something everyone at Georgia Tech does, being a tech college. So that you do regardless of your major. If you're a CS major, then you proceed on to classes such as data structures and algorithms. So they'll teach you how data structures function on the back end and how you can program your own data structures and how algorithms are run and how you can create algorithms from scratch. So that is the class I'm working on right now. And looking ahead, I have one electronics class, which is again a core for all CS majors, so that you know your data structures and so that you know what's happening in the computer behind the scenes. So that is a compulsory class. And then there are classes which are thread focused, which essentially depend on the thread choices you make. So each student has to choose between 9 threads, I believe, and and you have to choose two of them. So the options are things like media, people, uh, devices, information and networks, modeling and simulation theory, and intelligence. Intelligence, I believe, is the most common thread because machine learning and intelligence are growing fields. So most people end up doing that. And for me, I'm personally thinking of doing modeling and simulation as my second thread because I like math and it's a math heavy thread. So I want to do that.
That's fantastic. Thank you for all the updates on how and what your thinking was when you made that switch. I'm sure it's going to be useful for some of our listeners who are really keen on understanding CS and other variants of computer science, computer engineering. So over and out. Thank you.